Hi, and welcome to In the World of Winooski. I'm Mayor Christine Lott, and today we are focusing on the new development project that's happening downtown, the hotel, parking garage, and housing project. This project completes the master plan vision for the revitalization of our downtown area, and I'm pleased to have joining me today one of the developing partners, Bill Niquette from Nettie Real Estate, who is the lead developer on the project and has been involved since the original downtown vision. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you for having me, Madam Mayor. I appreciate it.
So excited to have you join us today. There is excitement in town about this project. Before we get into the details of it, though, I was hoping you could share a little bit about back in the 90s, before the whole downtown revitalization.
Sure.
Just tell us a little bit about how this vision came about, how we're now today looking at a hotel in Winooski.
Yeah. Well, you're right. It really started, we say it started in the late 90s because that's when the actual project that we worked on together when I worked for the city back in 1999 through 2004, that sort of revitalization project happened. But really, it was a project that started in 1972, 73, because you had 6 blocks of downtown Winooski from Main Street all the way to the edge of where the hotel is going to go now. That was all raised as part of an urban renewal project. So in late 60s, that happened in downtown Burlington, and then Winooski got funding to take down what was then called slums and blight, but it was really sort of a street grid of 6 blocks of downtown Winooski. It looked a lot like the West Side. And that was all torn down, including Bill's Diner, where my parents met and, fell in love. So, I mean, there was a lot of history in that area. But when that was removed, it took about 10 years before anything actually went back into place there. And people remember the old grocery store and Mahoney's Hardware, and that whole higher ground later on was in that sort of shopping mall that got built in this area. And it was really when that started to come to its sort of logical conclusion, with Shaw's getting built up at Exit 16.
Oh, yeah.
And, the various types of larger scale retail was coming in, and it really sort of wiped out the demand for the small grocery store that was there. And that's when we had this opportunity to come in and sort of rethink that area. And our thought was to put back the street grid, strangely enough, that had been removed, and sort of reintroduce this idea of an urban density that had been removed, way back when. And that effort, from 2004 until about 2015, building out that street grid again, always had behind it the idea of bringing a full-service hotel into downtown. We really focused on a place to live, work, and play.
Yeah.
And back then, there really wasn't a lot of housing happening in that area. And convincing people who lived downtown that lived in Winooski that what they needed downtown was more housing was a little bit counterintuitive, right?
Interesting.
Everyone already had a house who lived there, right?
Yeah.
They're like, why do we need more housing? But in fact, we felt that if we could attract more people who sort of embraced an urban lifestyle, that would in turn bring back the demand for, restaurants, retail,
downtown
vital kind of uses. And in fact, that's sort of what's happened, right? We've gone from, a vacant West Side in the late 90s that really had a bunch of boarded up storefronts in various places to now, thousands of new residents in downtown Winooski that really appreciate and help to drive the retail and restaurant sector that's there.
It's certainly much more vibrant now, and people love it.
It's walkable. When I grew up in Winooski, you couldn't walk on the waterfront, right?
Oh, wow.
Where the boardwalk is now. That was privately owned land. That was really a loading dock for Mahoney's Hardware and, sort of where higher ground was. So if you stood where the main view down to the boardwalk is today, you couldn't even see the river. You were looking at the Champlain Mill. You were looking at a large scale, sort of big box that could have been, any strip mall in the United States. You had no knowledge that the river was even there. You know?
Wow.
So to now be able to go back to a time when, you know, to even think about that now is hard to believe. But, you know, that's probably the most exciting part of the original project for me was being able to see people even today, you know, using that, using the river walk and sort of appreciating the riverfront for what it is really very rewarding.
It's definitely a beautiful area that residents love, and visitors. And so this project is on the last parcel. Essentially, it's been a
Yeah.
flat dirt lot, parking lot for some time.
Yep.
You're bringing to us hotel, housing, another municipal parking garage. Just wherever you'd like to begin, talk to us about what's going in there now.
Well, sure. So you're right. It's on the one hand, it's only an acre of land. You know, on the other hand, it's surrounded by all of this density. You know, so when the city decided in 2019 that it would go out for an RFP to sort of, you know, think about how to maximize the use of this land. You know, we had the benefit of all of these other projects that came before us to sort of say, okay, you know, how do we try to maximize uses? And the way we sort of came up with that was to try to put the uses vertically as well as horizontally. So you've got basically the entire site covered with 3 layers of parking. And, you know, but rather than stop at just having a parking deck there, you know, surrounding it on the south and north sides and above with these 2 additional uses, the hotel and the workforce housing project. It's a little similar to what we did at the west end of the site along the traffic circle, where you have a 7-story parking deck that a lot of people don't even know is there, because it's surrounded on 3 sides, or all 4 sides really, by additional development. And that was kind of our, you know, jumping off point.
Okay. Let's hear about the hotel first. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah. Well, it's slated to be a Marriott hotel, the first, obviously the first Marriott in Winooski, but the first Marriott Tribute Hotel, which is a soft brand that is really a boutique effort of Marriott that allows us, rather than just building something that's cookie cutter, to instead be able to focus on what's local, what's special about Vermont. So we're able to take all aspects of the design and customize them, you know, to tell a story that is very much a Vermont, you know, based story. So the name is the Sugar House Hotel. It's intended to sort of be themed as a Vermont, you know, project with a lot of emphasis on, you know, kind of where does it come from a Winooski standpoint, kind of celebrating that urban, you know, that urban heritage that we have, and at the same time, because we're next to all this 100 acres of open space, also being able to, you know, attract people, be very dog friendly, be very pedestrian friendly, you know, trying to say, look, you can walk out the door in one direction, you can be in the most densely developed square mile in Vermont. You can go in the other direction. You can go for a mile-long walk along the river with your pet, or enjoy. We're hoping to do some horse-drawn carriage rides seasonally, and some other things that are that we're working on that we think will help to bring a little bit of what is special about Vermont into the building itself. The hotel is 115 keys. It's really a 8-story building the way it presents from the street on the south side. And it's a little bit inverted in the sense that the lobby and sort of a cafe is happening at the ground floor level, something that we see as being sort of a community element.
Publicly accessible.
People being able to come in, get coffee, get something in the morning, not just a hotel element sort of thing, but a place where people who live in the neighborhood could meet up in the mornings, and relax. Oh, look at this. Someone is going to fix my microphone. This might be the first time in a while that someone thinks I'm not loud enough. Is that right? Good enough. I apologize. So the idea, though, is that really all of the public spaces for the hotel happen on the roof. So
Okay.
it's a rooftop level assembly space with a full service restaurant, an outdoor roof deck, so that we can, sort of appreciate looking out over the city, looking
Great
out over
views.
I think so. It's going to be really kind of fun that way, and then meeting spaces that can be anywhere from small, sort of 30 to 40 person groups to all the way up to 150 at a time, combining 3 spaces together for like larger celebrations. So being able to think about not just the hotel as a place for tourists to come, but also for local businesses and for people in the region to be able to drive, visits that are for a lot of different reasons, and not just that basic tourist market. Yeah.
That's fantastic. We're going to get economic activity out of folks staying at the hotel, folks coming for use of the meeting spaces, et cetera. Some jobs?
Absolutely. Typically full-service hotel of this kind, we're anticipating somewhere between 55 and 60 full-time equivalent jobs that'll come out of, between the cafe, the hotel, the restaurant space. Lots of different, skilled and unskilled labor segments
Okay.
that are hit. So I think it's going to be a great opportunity for someone who lives downtown, to be able to be there and walk to work, have an alternative to needing to use a car every day if they don't want to, and that's part of what is kind of fun for me personally, because in a lot of the work that I do with housing development, more typically, it's exciting to also look at this job creation capacity as well.
Yeah, and another benefit is, one thing that City Council talked about is we think having a hotel downtown will also take some pressure off of the short-term rental market in the city.
I certainly hope that's true. We see it running both ways. In places like New York, where they're starting to clamp down on short-term rentals. Outside of you see hotel occupancy rates back up again. It's really clear there's a very a very close relationship between those things, and I think that's exactly right. There's also some evidence that we've had anecdotally that some of the people who are we're getting at, people asking us about taking office space in Winooski, saying, what's the story with the hotel? When is it going to be ready? Because I think that people just think of being in a downtown setting, part and parcel of that is, we have work events. We want to be able to have someone stay, near to where we're doing. We have remote offices, those kinds of things. So I think it will also help support some of the existing and potentially new, office tenants as well.
Could bring additional employers to town. That's great.
For sure.
And then tell us about the housing piece. Obviously, high priority in the city of Winooski.
High priority everywhere.
Everywhere.
Right? I mean, it's I've been doing this work for 25 years, and it never really gets easier from the standpoint of just in terms of the challenges that are out there. Post-COVID, looking at the labor markets, looking at the cost of materials, looking at some of the challenges of finding land. For us to be able to look at an 87 new apartments downtown, on the one hand, you can make an argument that, there's already a lot of apartments there, but on the other hand, we planned for 800 apartments in the original project when we did the original master plan in the 90s, again, because there is this very tight relationship between the viability of the bodegas, the service businesses, the restaurants, the things that need to have residents close by.
You need density to
for
have
them to work.
enough of those services for
everyone.
So,
when I think about the apartments, I don't just think about the workforce that's served there, which is great, and certainly, a great benefit, but it's also, who is patronizing the bakery every day, and and who's working in that bakery, and are they more like, is that somebody who could live here and be able to walk to work and, take some additional traffic pressure, off from the region. So we think of these downtown housing units as just, how do we house people who need housing, and that's true. but there's a lot more dimensions to it than that in terms of creating a healthy downtown, you know. So we've got 87 apartments. There's a mix of studios and 1-bedrooms and 2-bedroom units. They're all, thanks to support of VHFA and the Vermont State Treasurer's Office providing some financing, they're all apartments that are going to be affordable to the workforce, which means between 80, in this case, and 100% of area median income. So, which is really exciting. We don't often get to work on that thing, that area that the governor likes to call the missing middle, you know, which is sort of folks who, you know, are looking for quality housing, can't afford some of the luxury things that are being built elsewhere, but also don't qualify or choose not to want to be in, you know, sort of traditional tax credit housing, which is usually limited to 80% of median or below.
Right,
you know.
right.
So I think to be able to target an entire building this way is something that I've not been able to do in my career. So it's exciting to do something, you know, sort of new there. And it also is a piece of the market in Winooski that hasn't been well addressed. River House, River Run, you know, some of the condominiums that are for rent, it represents a luxury segment. We've got a couple of hundred units of affordable tax credit housing at Keene's Crossing. You got student housing, you know, but really we didn't have that particular piece of the market well defined. And so I, you know, really applaud Nettie Real Estate for their, you know, willingness to kind of stick with this and figure out how to get that that particular market segment addressed.
Definitely, and since the city's 2017 housing needs assessment, that missing middle has been the area of greatest need and lowest availability.
It's, you know, it's really somewhat straightforward economics in the sense of we do have tools that exist in sort of the economic toolbox between tax credits and other focused grants from HUD and other federal services to provide this, you know, 30, 40, 50, 60%, 80%, you know, affordability. But there, until very recently, there haven't really been any tools that have been super focused on this missing middle segment. And I give a lot of credit to these various studies that were done in between 2015 and 2020 because I think it did raise an awareness of the need for those things. And, you know, Seth Leonard and his fine work at VHFA in terms of bringing forward the programs that we were able to utilize through them that were focused on missing middle allow us to look at this a little bit differently. You know, we don't have to just say these costs are high and they drive only new units with high rents.
Yeah.
We can try to drag some of those costs back into a more affordable realm, you know, using this tool.
Very excited about that. I know community members will be as well.
Yeah.
What'd you say, 87 units, I think?
87 apartments.
That's a lot to come online at once for us.
Yeah, exactly. So. Well, and I think, you know, all indications are, you know, we honestly feel that we'll, you know, just looking at what the workforce demand is downtown, you know, and people coming in for the hotel, for, you know, for their jobs. I mean, I think we're gonna, you know, we're already getting people asking about, you know, when there's going to be a waiting list, and we're currently looking at that particular project starting shortly, next couple of months, and being, you know, open in the summer of 2026, hopefully.
Oh yeah, that's great. Was hoping you could share some timeline and what kind of construction impact people might expect over the coming years.
Yeah, well, I think if you live down there, you know there has been an impact, and you know we certainly regret that. I mean, the reality of installing a foundation on an urban site is you're working next to other buildings, and you know we have to look at some non-traditional methods for doing that. So a lot of pile driving, a lot of sheet piles, a lot of, you know, kind of structured foundations. The good news is that work is done, and you know, we're now at a point with the construction of the garage where very shortly we'll have kind of the podiums that these additional buildings will get built from. The hotel is a combination of steel frame and a precast concrete plank. So that we selected at least in part because of its durability long term, but it also has the advantage of being a construction method that goes up quickly.
Okay.
And it gets fabricated largely off-site and then brought in, right? So it does help us to, you know, sort of minimize the ongoing pain and suffering of someone who, you know, might be concerned they're going to listen to, you know, hammers banging all day, right? And the housing is a panelized construction that's happening in wood on top of the concrete podium level. So that's something where, again, the exterior of the building is built off-site. It comes together rather quickly, and so, while it's impossible to build a building without any construction impact, the reality is these methods will help us to sort of temper, the day-to-day pain and suffering people are going to feel, for sure.
And so when did you say hotel and then apartments likely to open?
I mean, of course, these things are all subject to when we actually, are able to start. But the hope is that both of these projects are underway in, sort of meaningfully in the next 60 days, and they have about the housing is about a 1-year duration to full completion, and the hotel a little bit longer. So, but they both end up that the hotel hopefully will start first. If you're there looking around, you can sort of see that there are, basic elements of the site work that were all sort of put in with the garage. And that's something that we imagine opening in the summer of 2026 as well.
Great, that's very exciting.
Yeah.
And then the parking garage, it'll support housing, hotel. There will also be public space. Anything special about that to share?
I think there's if you had told me starting my development career that I would have spent 80% of my time trying to figure parking out, I might not have, sort of taken this path. I mean, but the reality is we live in a state where, most people have to choose to drive at some point. And that means when you're downtown, you got to figure out how to share parking where you can. So there's certainly the direct benefit of the garage to anyone who's visiting, Cassavant Park, would be able to drive to the, extension of Winooski Falls Way and then enter into the garage and, park there and go for a walk if they want to, which, arguably they could have done that on the dirt lot before, but as you know, there were, CCV and other uses for that lot over time. CCV is a great example of how these things can sort of fit together because, they will now be able to park some of their people closer to their building than when they were providing some of their parking in the West Garage, and that in turn frees up. Whoa. I guess I'm just destined to drop this thing 3 times today. Bear with me. Poor studio folks, I apologize. You can get me a microphone. You can get me a microphone, but you can't make me use it properly. It allows people to basically shift some of their use so that we'll have additional demand available in the West Garage.
Right.
And so the city operating these additional spaces, it doesn't just focus on, who's going to directly use it, but it's also going to mean that we've got more opportunities, for example, to see new tenancy in the Champlain Mill because there's additional, parking that's freed up in the West Garage. So, what's exciting for us about the parking deck is that by sharing these uses and keeping it public, we minimize the amount of land area that's being focused just on parking, which is a necessity for all of us, but it's not something that really creates the same economic activity as the other uses.
That reminds me too, got me thinking about climate issues of that nature. This hotel also has some design features.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you for reeling us back in that direction. So there are something like 3,500 Marriott hotels worldwide, and NETI is trying to target this as the first net zero, all electric, zero fossil fuel hotel in their entire worldwide network. Great. So we do that by a combination of a geothermal, exciting kind of geothermal electric heating system, and focusing on things like an all-electric kitchen in the hotel that allows us to be able to operate that whole restaurant and cafe without any fossil fuels, which is very unusual.
Wow, yeah.
And then a series of rooftop solar and other off-site investments to be able to have 100% of that electricity use, offset within the project. So, we think that it's to some degree, there's a marketing advantage to it, of course. You know, we're seeking a LEED Platinum designation. There's only about a dozen of those hotels in the country that have that designation. So the hope is that, you know, we'll be able to sort of walk the walk when we talk about, you know, hey, we want to be on the cutting edge of what it means to operate these things in a green way, because we think that's part of the Vermont brand, you know, is that they're always pushing forward in that regard. And even if you're not someone who is really focused in that direction, I think you'll appreciate all of the comfort that comes out of the attention that goes into the building envelope. And it's not just about, you know, sort of boring things like a boiler, you know, but it's also just comfort throughout the building being a higher level because of all of those improvements. So it's really, I've learned a lot through that process, and because there's so much to learn from it, and it's been exciting.
Well, and I think aligns with Winooski community values as well. So
absolutely,
I know folks have been excited to hear that as an aspect of this project. I'm excited for this. You know, this is just really going to add to the vibrancy of our downtown. It's going to support some real needs in our housing stock. Before we close it out today, anything else that you want to make sure to share?
Well, I just, you know, want to take the opportunity to not just thank the city for their support in this, but also, you know, just express appreciation to residents downtown who've been putting up with this, right? You
Definitely.
know, we realize that these things, it's always fun to talk about the enjoying a drink on the rooftop in the future, and we certainly hope people will come and do that. But we also appreciate that there's a process to these things, and you know, we're glad to provide it. We're doing our best to be smooth about it, but we certainly appreciate everyone's understanding as we grind through that. Definitely.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for joining me today. For folks who are interested in learning more, you can visit winooskivt.gov, and if you click on the Initiatives tab, you can find the 17 Abenaki Way, Winooski Falls East page with a little more information. Bill Niquette, thanks again. It's been a pleasure to have you.
I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right. Thank you all for joining.